I know something about you. I know that you, or someone you know well, has poor mental health. We're all affected by problems with mental health. It's everywhere. And if you haven't heard about this, then I'm a little bit worried about your mental health. Because we all have mental health, don't we? Just like we have physical health. And just like those days where we all experience a terrible cold or a crippling backache, at some point in our lives, we or someone we care about will find ourselves feeling totally stuck. What to do? Well, it's not as if there's no help out there. There's so much help out there. Brilliant. Let's get help. There's wellness coaches, lifestyle coaches, neuroscientists and psychotherapists, CBT, DBT, art and music therapy. There's aromatherapy, cupping therapy, neuroscientists and psychologists, mindful laughing. Oh, and there's goat yoga. There's even goat yoga. All of these incredible people doing all of this fantastic work. The problem then, though, is that we can't think straight. There we are, feeling not quite right, and we're overwhelmed, saturated with choice. Making a decision is hard enough at the best of times. I mean, don't ever come shopping with me. I always find myself 6 hours later, checked out every store, bought nothing, exhausted, tired, beyond flustered, headache. I don't know about you, but when I'm feeling suboptimal on the emotional well-being front, I'm not always best placed to make a decision, particularly one that concerns my health and well-being. I listen to people, and they say to me, I want to move forward with my life, and it's getting a bit tricky here. My gosh, I just want to wake up in the morning and look forward to a nice cup of tea, let alone getting down to Regent's Park and doing downward dog surrounded by goats. I just want to know how to take that first step, how to put that one toe on the carpet next to the bed in the morning without feeling like it's totally terrifying and pointless. What if there were another way? I mean, what on earth are we supposed to do? What if there was a profession that offered choice and supported you to make the right choices all in one place with one mental health practitioner, sort of like a mental health GP? And what if this practitioner was all about treating and healing through the things you need and want to do? And what if this profession could tell literally dozens of things about you, developmentally, physically, emotionally, just by observing what you do and how you do it? And what if this profession could work for the full and vast spectrum of mental health, from full-blown psychosis to feeling out of sorts? And what if you didn't have to cancel your therapy session if you couldn't get out of bed or even turn on the Zoom because you felt so terrible? Because someone who gets it would come round to you and work with you in your own home environment. Well, what if I told you there is such a profession? And it's called Mental Health Occupational Therapy, OT for short. And can I just say, for the record, it's got nothing to do with occupational health. That's a whole other talk from a completely different person. Have you ever heard of it? Mental Health OT. Don't worry if you haven't, I hadn't either. Not until the summer of 1990. I got myself a cleaning job in an occupational therapy department. And on my very first day, this woman marched up to the studio door, flung it open. She was pretty agitated and people were starting to back away from her. And she started shouting and screaming. I actually thought she was going to start throwing some furniture around. She seemed really distraught, like stuck in the intensity of her emotions. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I thought some men in white coats, some doctors would turn up and do something drastic and medical like I'd seen in the movies. But do you want to know what happened? A mental health occupational therapist appeared. I will never forget her name, Jean Grant. She was totally calm and exceptionally caring. And it was clear that she knew and understood why this woman was feeling so infuriated. Jean guided this woman towards a chair and handed her a piece of clay. And together, they started to create this beautiful piece of sculptured art. And the woman totally calmed down as she used her hands through the soft, smooth, soothing clay. At times, they seemed to be talking. At other times, they were closing their eyes and taking these deep breaths. Jean had unstuck her, using something she knew this lady loved, art, and integrating what we would now refer to as mindfulness. And as I stared through the little window in that door, I thought to myself, I want to do that. I want to be the person with the magic box of tools that knows what approach is right for that person and where they're at. I want to be the person that knows if what you need is simply to be listened to over a nice cup of tea or to go rock climbing and re-engage in your core strength and sense of achievement. I want to be the person that teaches you relaxation technique without you feeling like I'm preaching, because we're having fun, going at your pace, driven only by what matters to you. Imagine me on a Monday morning, playing Uno with a young man who has clinical depression. Except I'm not just playing Uno. I'm assessing his fine and gross motor function, his sensory awareness, his emotional state, his nonverbal communication, and I'm asking him about his family and his friends and his home and his work and his passions and his interests and his feelings, and he's telling me, because I'm not patronizing him or overwhelming him. We're just playing Uno, right? It may look like a simple, calm, ordinary game of cards. But underneath, I'm like one of those SAS Navy SEALs people, you know, like the Jason Bourne of the clinical world, assessing 100 different things all at once. Mental health occupational therapy is holistic. It's about working with what activities are meaningful to you. What do you need and want to do? What's relevant to your life? Is it to cook a Sunday dinner, or to get back to university and become a neuroscientist? Back when I started as an occupational therapy student 32 years ago, I didn't hear very many people talking about the power of things like nutrition and sleep and exercise. I didn't see people paying attention to all this gorgeous stuff that's since been so clinically written and raved about. I don't want to sound smug, but us OTs, we've been onto this stuff for decades, and it's written, integrated into our practice from the very first day of our clinical training. But the problem is, you're more likely to try the goat yoga than you are mental health OT. Why? Because unless you find yourself really unwell on a hospital ward or living in assisted accommodation, mental health OT doesn't really exist. We've become sort of stuck ourselves as a profession, sort of confined within the walls of what's deemed comfortable. And that's got to change. I've been busy on a mission to take mental health occupational therapy out of the hospital wards and into a more accessible model. I passionately believe in my profession, and I wholeheartedly want mental health OT to get the recognition it deserves. I want more people to use OT and to train to be occupational therapists, because we are living in a mental health epidemic, and we are really missing the integration of this powerful model and the value that it holds. And that's why I set up my mental health OT practice in 2018. And then at the beginning of 2020, I got a business partner, we expanded. Yeah. A service based on face-to-face contact with people in their own homes and the community launched at the beginning of a global pandemic. Slight deflation of mood on March the 23rd. Nevertheless, we've been inundated with people struggling with various aspects of their mental health. And because OTs are master problem solvers, we got creative and found different ways to help them to become unstuck. One of those people was Matthew. Matt was a 26-year-old young man who got hit by anxiety and depression when he was at university. And after quitting his course and coming home to his mum and dad, Matt slowly disengaged and became isolated from the things that had previously given him meaning and purpose and joy. By the time Matt got to me, he'd tried 4 different types of psychotherapy, CBT, and medication, and none of it had worked. The day that I met Matt, my SAS Navy SEAL skills were out in full force, and before the hour was up, my OT sniffer dog senses had recognized that this young man's anxiety and depression was probably likely to be caused by an undiagnosed autism. So after an assessment with an autism specialist, I was proved right, and bit by bit, Matt got his life back. Matt got his life back because he now understood that it wasn't his fault that none of these other therapies had worked, and it made sense why university had been such a challenge. And it opened him up to working with us OTs, with our specialist knowledge of mental health and neurodiversity. We engaged Matt in the things that he loved, animals, maths, and tennis. And we spent sessions tidying his bedroom and embracing new organizational structures, or chatting at the local cafe about techniques to support his self-care. We even integrated Matt into a group where he could meet like-minded people and find a sense of community. And his relationships with his family improved because his relatives now had a new perspective and a new understanding of Matt's perspective of the world. Matt was stuck, just like we all get stuck sometimes. And OT, with its enormous box of tools, really helped, just like it could help you or your partner or your sibling or your child. So this is an invitation to join me and find out more about the power of mental health OT and how it can reconnect us all to a sense of meaning and purpose. Thank you.